to welcome everyone to Mettā Centre, and a very good evening to those who are here in Sydney, and for those who are overseas, then wherever you may be, hello. Today we have such a pleasure to have Bhante Ānanda join us. Bhante has just conducted a 9-day retreat with all of us and at the Blue Mountains, and now he's here giving more Dhamma before he flies off tomorrow. So for those who don't know Bhante Ānanda, he's a Canadian Buddhist monk trained in the teaching and way of life of early Buddhism. And having received his going forth from Bhante Vimrulamsi and completing full ordination in Sri Lanka, he aims to embody the essence of the Buddha's instructions. So he now divides his time between Sri Lanka and the Heartwood Hermitage in British Columbia, and also the Indian Himalayas, and hopefully Australia. Mm-hmm. And Bhante Ānanda leads retreats worldwide and offers his teachings also online on his website at heartdhamma.love, and I'll be posting that information into the chat and also into the YouTube description below. So Bhante today will be talking on the topic on unveiling release from greed, hatred and delusion. What an excellent topic. So I'm very much looking forward to this, and I now welcome Bhante. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. Thank you, everybody. First I want to ask your forgiveness because I might be a little bit, this is my first time in this setup, so I'll try to cover everybody, which means kind of online, and because I really like to have a kind of visual contact with the people I talk to, so I'll try to execute that. But we'll see. So I just want to say that it's a real pleasure for me to also be here. Thank you so much, Tina and Zen and everybody at the Mettā Centre. I really appreciate what you guys are doing, and it's been such a lovely pleasure to spend all that time with all of you during that past retreat. And I think we are meant to start with a 10-15 minute of meditation together, and I would maybe start forward into this and invite everybody to take a comfortable position. So whether you are sitting on the floor, sitting on the chair, take a posture in which you feel at ease, you feel comfortable, with your back relatively straight. And close your eyes. And allow your whole body and mind complex to calm down, to relax, to settle. Perhaps feeling the ground beneath you, welcoming you, supporting you. Welcoming you into presence. Allowing any kind of tension that's accumulated in your body and in your mind to release, to open up, to make some room, make some space. And notice the relief. Like a long exhale. Notice the gladness and smile. Leaving all of your worries, anxieties, plans, dropping all your weapons, armoring. It's okay. You're in a good, loving space here. You can relax and rest and smile. And using this beautiful smile that you are wearing right now, and the gladness that comes from relaxing, letting go of any tension, to tune into the feeling of warmth in your heart, the feeling of love or loving kindness. The same feeling that you feel when you perhaps spend time with a young child, a baby, when you care for perhaps a young animal, perhaps for you it is maybe a place in nature, a person that you love. Whatever works for you, to bring that feeling of loving kindness slowly. The same feeling that perhaps makes your palms sweat, the top of your head warm, your heart glowing, radiant. Perhaps your spine or nervous system tingling here and there. And smile. Really let it all go. Make room for love, and it will come. Not through forcing, but through wisdom and allowing space, relaxing, letting go, unclenching. Remember that all living beings want to be happy. All living beings want to be loved. That is one very basic truth. And so may they all be happy. May they all be loved. And whenever distraction arises in your mind, don't take it too seriously. It's only a habit of the mind to be distracted, to go here and there, to jump from this branch to that branch, the monkey mind. Just relax, smile, and return to loving kindness. Easy. And slowly allowing the flow of experience, allowing the flow of the senses to be welcomed in your perceptions. Allowing yourself to come back to your senses slowly as we move towards the more active part of our meeting. Opening up your eyes slowly. Welcoming the room with the love in your heart, the smile on your lips. Welcoming this experience, this talk, this discussion we will have. And welcome back. Okay. Would you like to say something before? Okay. Good. Okay. So, I received a little special request from my friend Bharat, our common friend Bharat, to maybe explore some aspects of the topic of what is Nibbāna. Is it interesting? So there's many, we'll see how this talk will flow. There's many different directions it could flow towards. We'll see where the interest flows, and we'll paddle in that direction. And of course, there's many, Nibbāna actually does not mean only one thing. It means many things. Interesting. And to pinpoint Nibbāna on one thing would be restricting it to maybe a little too confined of a meaning. And so we tonight will explore a little bit more about different options that we have and how to understand what that means. And I thought maybe I would we would go to the origin story that I think is maybe, perhaps, the origin story of where the Buddha got this principle. And so I would just like to open this talk actually with a question. So what do you think is Nibbāna? And I'm assuming we can also invite all the online presence and everybody. Yes. Freedom from, sorry?
Oh, and Andrew had it.
Yes, so freedom from greed, hate, and delusion. Those are very big terms. Yes, we'll come back to that.
Oh, I just added attachments as well.
And attachments, the end of attachments. Very nice, very good. We have very, very wise crowd.
Like another definition that I heard is that it's just like the complete cessation of kind of the process of body and mind.
The complete cessation of the process of body and mind.
That's one I heard.
Very good, very good. Excellent. Well, we have a really good spectrum to work.
Someone online
Yes.
has said, right view / freedom from ignorance.
Okay, very good.
So many definitions.
So
It's like
many.
a politician speaking.
I also heard another one that says Nirvana is a state of unborn, unbecoming,
Yeah.
deathless. What else? Something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Very good. which might be a little closer to Eugene's answer, maybe. Yeah, the unborn, the unbecoming, the unseen. Yeah, those are all really good answers. Actually, we cover quite a good spectrum. Tina's not risking it.
Oh, no. I was just letting people say, well, there's other definitions like the ending of suffering.
The ending of
the
suffering,
blowing
yes.
out.
Yeah, the blowing out,
When
yes.
there is no longer anything to stir up
Mhm.
the continuous of existence.
Yes, yes. Very good, very good. So those are all good answers, and you all passed the test because they're all somewhat related to what we were talking about. And I guess my main takeaway, which I will give right at the beginning, is that Nibbāna is more like a principle than an actual one-way concept. So once we understand that, there's a lot of things that it can mean, and we open it up. And in many different teachings and discourses, the Buddha actually ties all of these kinds of principles around. He uses sometimes different words. Sometimes he uses Nibbāna, sometimes he uses the word cessation, sometimes he uses other words like the unborn or all of this. I think it's in the numerical discourses. There's the Book of Ones, I believe. There's like a whole list of synonyms that could be used for that, and it's really interesting. Just as a kind of an interesting exploration, I thought we could look into this particular story, which I find very interesting, which appears not in the suttas. It is actually explained in the Vinaya. And this is right when the Buddha attains full awakening, and he, of course, does his thing around all the trees, all the places where he stopped for 7 days and enjoying the bliss of freedom and all these things. And then he goes and teaches the turning of the wheel, the discourse that a lot of people are familiar with. But then when the 5 ascetics have received the Dhamma and are very solidly anchored into the Dhamma, the next people the Buddha goes to is, and this is a less traveled road or a less known story, is a group of fire worshipper ascetics who are headed by Kassapa. His name is Kassapa. He's an ascetic practicing austerities. And, well, not austerities, but doing fire worship, basically, by the Ganges. And they would kind of ritual bathe in the Ganges and make these fires and spend much time devoted to the Agni Puja, which was a very prominent feature of many different spiritual traditions at that time. And the whole story is quite a lengthy one. I'm not going to talk about. There's a lot of magic powers involved, a lot of, walking on water and all of these good things happening. But I think and fighting a fire serpent. And the main thing that really happens is that at the end, the Buddha is able to convince this group of 1,000 sadhus, basically, that his attainment and his understanding is very profound, and he kept. He stayed with them. He stayed around out of compassion, basically, to kind of help them see a little bit deeper into their own spiritual practice. And at some point, because Kassapa has a little bit of he thinks he's fully awakened, and I guess that's something that happens sometimes. I said some one day that, you know, one of the biggest hindrances a person can have is think that they're fully awakened, because then one stops. One stops any kind of training, and that's what happened to Kassapa at that point. And he thought, oh, this great ascetic Gautama is very great, he's very powerful, but he's not an arahant like me. So he had that kind of ego in him, and the Buddha was just trying to help him because he saw that he also had good qualities, and so he was just staying there and trying to show in skillful ways, not, you know, but just in little ways here and there, like, you know, walking on water. You know, there was maybe something more for him to learn. And so, and the story goes, and this is the teaching, this is one of the three main teachings that are often recited. There's the wheel turning, then the Dhammacakkappavattana, and then there's the fire sutta. This is one of the main suttas with also the characteristics of non-self. These three are called like cardinal suttas because they're very, they have their roots at the very beginning of the Buddha's awakening and teaching. And it's a road less traveled, so it's kind of interesting perspective. And so now that you all know the context for this, these are all fire worshipping ascetics with good qualities, just doing these rites and rituals constantly. And we see also that connection with rites and rituals and entering the stream, which the Buddha came later with. He goes, and this is a teaching to the thousands, the thousand ascetics there. He says, everything is ablaze, monks. Does that sound familiar? Everything is burning. And what is all ablaze? The eye is ablaze, monks. Shapes are ablaze. Visual cognition is ablaze. Visual contact is ablaze. Any sensation that arises based upon visual contact, whether pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, this also is ablaze. Blazing with what? What do you think? We had the answer earlier. Greed, hatred, and delusion. Very good. With the fire of greed, the fire of hate, the fire of delusion, and the fire of taking action and rebirth, or the birth of action, we can see that as like generating karma, basically. Aging and death, sadness, cries, trouble, depression, and anxiety, I say. Our teacher, my teacher, Bhante Ānanda, would always say, with grain, pain, grief, and despair. On a light note, to make this a little bit more swallowable, a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down. And what are other words that I used on the retreat for those who were there for greed, hate, and delusion? Because those are really big, scary words for a lot of people. Wanting, yes. Yes. Wanting instead of craving, or greed, which greed we understand, but you know the word greed comes from mainly you know, an old translation of the Old Testament and you know the commandments, and it works, but it's not the only thing that we can. Sometimes I call it longing because it's just that inclination. Venerable Mettā Ānanda was talking about this magnetic pull. That was also another good way of saying that attractive kind of pull that we get. And And hate.
I like aversion.
Aversion, yes. Sometimes I call it just dislike. Sometimes dislike, or sometimes impatience. It's not a full-fledged, I'm pulling the sword and, And so we have, there's a gradient to this. I like to remind that because, it's not just, these really intense qualities, because the more we practice also, we'll see that it gets very subtle, and it's not necessarily about getting really angry and strangling someone. It's just, it's more like, something is like not working, and then you get impatient. Well, it's
like if you're walking on a narrow footpath and like someone's right in front of you and like they won't like move out of the way and you're stuck behind them.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Did that happen today? It happens most days. Yeah, exactly. That's the one. Dissatisfaction. I call tanha craving, sometimes, very often actually, dissatisfaction or discontent. Yeah, because that's what it is at its root, basically.
And dissatisfaction is also dislike, because it's disliking what's happening.
Yes.
Why
Yes.
dissatisfied.
Exactly. Yeah. And inequanimous. Yeah, exactly. I'm not angry, I'm inequanimous. Darling? So you know what to answer next time. Very good, very good. I like that. I'll remember that one. And they're all very close, huh? They're all really related. It's like dislike is also wanting this not to be. So it has that discontent in it. It has that dissatisfaction. So it's not being okay with what is. And it's not being okay with the truth, basically. That's all it comes down to.
So is it like when your reaction doesn't match up to what's actually happening? Like my example with the person on the sidewalk, like it's not that, it doesn't make sense to be that annoyed. Is that like what you're talking about, kind of thing? Like when your reaction it doesn't match the situation.
Exactly. And well, that's one way to talk about it, which is actually really good. Maybe your emotional state or reaction doesn't match the situation. And for it to match the situation, we have to understand how is the situation working. Because once we know that, then we only see it for what it is, and then we don't actually feel it. Yeah, and I think all of these conditions add up, especially when we're not also these are allowed in our experience, the less we're aware of them, and we're not letting them go and relaxing, and knowing the second fold or the second part of the path, which is, or the Four Noble Truths, which is to let go of all of that. And so yes, very good. I would put that in the category maybe of like accumulated baggage or tendencies, maybe, that just kind of make that whole thing.
Bhante, just using that same example, because it's such a great example, would you say that the dislike happens even before Brooke had that reaction to them, and the dislike is that Brooke is on a path and you have a certain expectation about how the other person should behave, which is get out of the way. And because they don't, so already the dissatisfaction has arisen from there.
Yes.
Even before you react to them.
Yeah,
Yes.
basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this is how my day should go. I don't want any distractions. I don't have time for this. I need to get this done in a limited amount then that just sets me up for looking for any.
Yeah.
I start looking for any single thing that's, and I don't even realize I'm doing it, but like I just automatically start looking for things that are gonna annoy me. Very bad habit.
Yeah, there you go.
It used to be
Self-answered.
less a year ago. I'm more self-aware now.
Great, great. Well done.
I no longer snap at people.
Oh, good. Very good.
It used to be like, I don't know, like now I just ignore it. I'd like take a breath and I'd walk away. But before it was like I'd yell. Yeah, it wasn't good.
Very proud of you.
Yes. And there is a wick underneath, and there is a wick, and there is all the potential there, and with the inclinations, yeah, as you were mentioning, Tina. And but the wick, it's up to us also how much is going to burn, and how do we? I see some smiles. That's good. And how. How, if we go a little bit deeper into what do these things feel like? The longing, the wanting, the pushing, the dislike. How's the mind? How's the mind? Is it calm? Is it cool? Ah. And is it still?
It's like
It's like Pac-Man.
Yeah, just
Yeah. Great. Yeah. And I'm assuming you've all looked at least at a candle flame or at a fire burning. What does it do mainly? What are the characteristics of a fire burning?
It's looking to lick up more things.
It's looking to lick up more things.
That's,
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Burning.
That's a
keep
great
going.
answer. Yes. To keep burning. I like that. That's very good. There's lots of imagery in there.
It's hot.
It's hot.
It's destructive.
It's destructive. And it's dangerous. Yes. And is it moving all the time? Fire is this kind of,
Flickers.
it flickers, this plasma. It's like you can't really touch it, but it's just moving everywhere. And like the Buddha would say the analogy of anger is like a pot of boiling water. Of all the hindrances, he would like give the specific kind of imagery for water. And then anger is like this pot of boiling water. So it's always moving. How are we feeling when and how are we feeling when we want something? We really want something. We can't let go. It's always churning in the mind. It's always moving, coming up and down, and moving, and we have a hard time containing it. And however much fuel we have under that to feed it, then how much wick we give it, then we have the intensity of it also. But the wick does not need to burn. Here we have the eye, shapes or forms. And so the eye and shapes, is that personal? Is that, does it have to do anything with, wanting or anything? There's an object, there's a visual object, there's an eye. How personal is that? Okay, so that's interesting. And then visual cognition. Then the Buddha says when these two things come and touch each other, there is a visual cognition that happens, a visual consciousness that arises in the mind. And at that point, do we have a choice about this? It's just what's happening now. Like my eyes are resting in front of me, and I'm seeing everybody here. But if I want to see, on the retreat I say unicorns and butterflies. Here I could say, I don't know, if I want to see the beach or something. Can I see the beach now? And so here we're talking about very impersonal, a very impersonal process that happens. And what we make of this, though, is where the choice is. That's where the fire can be given rise. And so up to the contact and up to the sensation, even the sensation, if I drink really good, what was today's juice? Some really good pomegranate juice or something, and then it feels really good. From there's a pleasant feeling, there's a pleasant sensation, but there is my choice to actually really want some more, or to, wow, that was really good juice. And then that's it. Who knows what's going to happen tomorrow? Who knows what's going to happen in 5 minutes? I might never taste that juice again. But see here, this is where the choice begins. What we do with all of these sense bases, this visual contact, or not just visual, but contact at any of the senses. And this is actually getting more and more developed and proven by science. There's a lot of research made on this and how, photons go through the optic nerve and all this. Venerable Mettā Ānanda is not here, and Bharat either, so I don't have my sources anymore. So I'm not going to go too far into this. But this is all a very impersonal process, yet we make it personal.
So
And
it's like you see an ad, like on your phone, and it's like something you'd really like to buy, and then you'd go on the website, and you don't just buy the thing. Like maybe you buy the thing, and then you're like, oh, it's so good, and then you keep buying more. Like the next time you buy from them, you buy more, which means less money, and then it's like, why'd I buy all these things?
Yes, exactly. And I just want to say the other fold that I want to really bring in, which is too often forgotten, is that there is a wholesome desire. There exists a wholesome kind of. We actually had a really good talk on this on was it the last day of the retreat, how to put healthy boundaries, which is not actually about hatred. It's not about disliking or pushing away. This can be done skillfully. And sometimes there is that need for affirming yourself more, like a protection, like putting down a boundary to say, this is the limit, and I'm not okay with you crossing that limit. And so sometimes we have to do this, and it doesn't mean that we hate somebody else. It just means that maybe they have a hard time seeing the limit. So for our own good, for their own good, we can establish that. And then there is a skillful desire also. So I just want to, this is like the little, the disclaimer of the talk. It's like, don't throw the baby with the bathwater. So that's a terrible analogy, but so basically we are talking about, letting go and finding relief from greed, hate, and delusion. But we also don't want to become, completely stale inside where, there's, this is not a nihilistic path. This is a very uplifting and joyful path. But sometimes we just have to remember. And so when I'm saying we need to let go of these, we have a choice whether we choose to have really like selfish desires or longing or unwholesome longing for things or hatred and things like that. This is our choice, and we have the choice to let it go and to actually develop wholesome qualities. And there is a skillful desire. So we're not, we do have some of that power still within us. Because to walk the path, we need desire. So Nibbāna doesn't mean you become just a zombie. Nibbāna is the Nibbāna of unwholesome mental states. So that's what that really means. But there is still Chanda, there is still a wholesome desire to do good deeds, to make merits, to help others, to practice the path, to purify our minds. That must be there. And so that's the disclaimer. From there, well, we have the choice to either buy into the storylines of our minds and habit patterns, or we can see it for what it is. This is simply something arising out of mental contact, like let's say a distraction, an unwholesome thought, and you are in full capacity and full power to change that, always. You always do. Sometimes we lack a bit of the awareness that we need to see it in the first place, but the power is always there. And what do these flames feel like in the body, for example? Anxious, yeah. Excited. There's always maybe a bit of tension going on in there that accompanies that. And so that is one of the best trick to have in our pockets. Awareness of the body. That's what the Buddha kept saying. Awareness of the body, awareness of the body. What does it mean? Well, all of our mental states, wholesome or unwholesome, even in traditional Chinese medicine and all of these, Ayurveda systems of ancient healing systems and medicinal systems, they pinpoint actually all of these unwholesome states to particular parts of the body even. And so this is quite ancient knowledge even. And so this is just a quick cheat for all of us, that we can always come back to the body and feel, how are we feeling right now? Is there any tension? And then every time we take a little bit of time, we make some space and relax, and then feel, oh yeah, very often we'll feel some residual tension in the neck, around the eyes, around the head here. And to take some time to actually tap into that, bring some awareness into that tension, because that's the first step to release it and relax it and let it go. And this is the beauty of the mind and the body complex, is that it's all together. When we let it go in the body, the mind opens up. And so that helps us move out of these states. And that's another way we can understand Nibbāna. My teacher would always say, every time you practice right effort, every time you let go of a distraction, you relax the tension in your body, release the distraction in your mind, you experience that relief there, that is Nibbāna. It's a mini Nibbāna, but Nibbāna nonetheless. And we accumulate it, we make it bigger and bigger with our wisdom and continual practice. And then it starts to stay with us. And then we understand, yes, this Nibbāna thing is quite nice. It's good to have wholesome states instead of unwholesome states. And so this is the second part of what I wanted to share with everybody. Is this sutta in, it's a discourse in the connected discourses, Saññāvedeyita Nikaya. This is in the in the book of, that's a good question. 6 senses. Directly visible Nibbāna. This is what it says. Does that sound familiar already? Directly visible? Okay, we'll go into it and we'll see what what it's all about. And so this Brahmin comes and visits the Buddha, and we'll just end on this. And he says, "Dear Gautama, I hear it said, Nibbāna directly visible, Nibbāna directly visible. But how is it, dear Gautama? How is Nibbāna directly visible, Sanditthiko?" Directly visible, immediate, inviting, leading upwards, to be experienced by the wise for oneself. How is that? And the Buddha answers, "Obsessed by selfish desires, Brahmin, overpowered by wants and needs, with a mind completely taken by it. People cause problems for themselves, cause problems to others, cause problems to everyone. And they experience mental agony, depression, and anxiety. But when people let go of selfish desires, they do not cause problems to themselves, others, and they do not experience mental agony, depression, and anxiety. This is how Nibbāna is directly visible." And so here the Buddha is just explaining it so simply that when we have, and by the way, he goes through greed, hate, and delusion, all three. And he says basically the same thing that I just said, but with greed, with hate, with delusion. And he says when we have these states, we are hurting ourselves, actually, in the first place. We're also hurting others by means of it. And so it's unskillful for everybody. But when we let go of that, naturally, it is relieving, and it brings us upwards. It is inspiring, inviting. And these are the qualities of the Dhamma as well. That's why I was asking at the beginning if it struck a chord with anybody. When we say the Dhamma is directly visible, experienceable by the wise, inviting, leading upwards, right? But here it is changed with Nibbāna. So that's also really interesting. So he's playing with these terms, and we see here that there's quite a bit of wiggle room. So every time we let go of these unwholesome states, that is what Nibbāna is. And everybody is experiencing on this path, whether at the beginning or at the end, a little glimpse of it. Every time you let go of any tension and unwholesome states in your mind. And so that is one aspect in which we can understand what is that term, the blowing out. Nirvana means to put out something. And so we become cool inside, peaceful, not agitated like a flame. And that is beautiful. And of course, there is the deeper understanding, which comes through the complete blowing out, the cessation of the mind, basically. Perception, sensations, experience. This is sometimes called Nirodha Samapatti, or Saññāvedeyita Nirodha, which is like what I just said in English, basically. This is the Pali for it. And so this is a bit of a deeper, so basically the Buddha here is kind of starting it from the top level, and he's saying here's the wick, and here's how it burns and all of this. But then also with craving, but then also there's a deeper teaching which he explains this whole process in a deeper way, where consciousness is also like a flame. It also comes up through causes and conditions. And so when these causes and conditions, sankhara, are actually released and relaxed, they don't come up anymore, then the flame of consciousness cannot be. And so it cools, it disappears. And this is usually attained by meditation practice and deep devotion to one's meditation. So, but maybe that can be for another talk.
Or another retreat.
Or another retreat, yes.
Comes back for another.
Yes, yes. So I think maybe in April. So in April, come find the second description of Nibbāna on retreat. Sometimes I will talk about it day 7 or 8 because there's a lot of momentum in the people's meditation. And personally, I like to talk about these things on an experiential level and not to keep them only as concepts and ideas in our minds. It's good to actually deliver that information when people are experiencing this mental level. So maybe we can open it up to questions, or okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you so
Okay.
much, Bhante. Very, very deep teaching, very interesting talk, but also very clear as well. So thank you for sharing. Opening up to questions. And for those who are online, you're welcome to pop it into the chat, or you can send it to me directly if you wish to stay anonymous. So, Bhante, we have some questions.
Oh, great.
Yes.
Okay.
So first question is this. Bhante, you mentioned about being free from negative feelings like anxiety or depression. What is the first step to ensure that we won't fall into that negative feeling in the future? How should a Buddhist view those feelings? Thanks in advance.
Yes. Well, the first thing is, like we talked about on retreat, is to actually have enough space to welcome them and to allow them to be there. Actually, this came a few times on retreat, where it's to let go of an unwholesome mental state. First, we need to be aware of it, and to be aware of it, we need to allow it to be, to welcome it. Because if we sometimes we can suppress emotions because we're scared of them, or we're told it's not good, and we just lug them away in a tidy little corner. I call it the yes. I call it the basement. We put all the monsters in the basement and we lock it up fast. But the thing is that at some point this is not sustainable. So we can't actually do that for very long. We just we're being like devoured from within, basically. And so the first step is to allow, and to not be ashamed either of these negative emotions. That's another very big point, to allow them to come up. It's okay. We're human beings, and if these emotions are there, if they come up, that means that they're there. They require attention. And so we lovingly allow them to come and welcome them. Is it Suzuki Roshi who says you offer them a cup of tea and invite them in? And then usually just by being loving and kind, they'll calm down. And so basically the simple things we can do is to not keep your attention on them, to not feed them. That's a good place to start. Because mentally what we do is we feed the storyline. Oh, this person did that to me. Oh, that's their fault. Oh, why did they behave like this? And now we're actually turning the finger. And we're, okay. So, okay, you're there, you're coming up, but I'm not feeding my awareness to it. So awareness is the food for any kind of mental states. So when we put our awareness to any kind of mental states, that will grow. So we release that, and then we check in the body, we relax. If there's any tension, we relax. And then that'll open up some space, make some room in the mind also, because body and mind are connected. And a helpful thing to do afterwards is to smile, because this triggers the same neural pathways in your brain than actually feeling happy, even though you might not be feeling happy on the moment. It's good to kind of gently force yourself, just very, very lightly, and just to raise the corners of your mouth and to laugh at your own mind for being distracted, for doing these things. It's like, what are you doing? It's like you want to keep rolling in, anxiety and things like that, or, just realize that it's just a habit. And it's actually very impersonal. You have the choice. You can just be like, okay, no, I'm not going to go there today. That's okay. Release, relax, smile. Then, if you're cultivating any kind of wholesome object of meditation or any wholesome mental state, loving kindness, compassion, joy, or even calm, if you like, equanimity, or if you're practicing the breath, you can go back to the breath or awareness of the body with joy. Yes, that is a meditation taught by the Buddha. And whatever you want to come back to, you can come back to that. And then let that calm down. Long answer.
Nice, great answer. Very thorough.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Cessation of light.
Yes, and we have the light cessation.
It's
Oh,
back now.
come in full force.
It's to wake you up. Bhante, we have other questions coming in.
Please.
Nibbāna. This one comes in a few folds, so I'll ask them, but I'm happy to repeat them as we go along as well. So can Bhante share why this concept of Nibbāna is important to Buddhists? Sounds rather plain. There is nothing. Is emptiness the same as Nibbāna? So maybe we'll stop there. We'll start with the first one and I'll ask the others. So can Bhante share why this concept of Nibbāna is important to Buddhists?
Yes. So it sounds a bit plain, and this is because very often, as I was mentioning again on the retreat, there's a lot of emphasis on the first and the second noble truths nowadays, which is
First noble truth?
First noble truth is suffering or dukkha, which I call often trouble or unpleasant experiences, maybe. Yes, and then the cause for it, the cause of trouble, which is greed, hate, and delusion, which we just talked about. And so when we put a lot of emphasis on that, then we're very, very aware of that. We're very aware that there's dukkha and the cause of it. But the thing is that that's not the complete teaching of the Buddha. The Buddha actually taught a way out of this. So if we only know this, we only know half of the understanding that the Buddha taught. And the way out is first that there is a way out of this. There is a way out of suffering. So what could the way out of suffering mean? What do you think that is? Or
Going through suffering.
Going through, what is the end of suffering? What is the end of problems, of trouble? Death. Well, that would be pretty, yes. But I don't think it ends there, though, because technically we're in samsara, so it's just a new beginning of more of it.
That's grim.
But depending on which mental states we develop, basically that's kind of the momentum, the force that carries us through. Heaven and hell is a mental state. It's not necessarily just a destination. I'm sure that if you've felt, if you've been through depression once, you kind of know what that feels like. You know, it's that feeling of being stuck and not being able to come out. I guess if I try to answer the question a bit more squarely, well then it's that very often we understand this as just suffering and the cause of suffering, but realistically the Buddha taught the way out of this. So that's really important. Otherwise, I don't think his teaching would have been really popular, to be honest. Like, well, here's suffering and here's the cause. Great.
That's it.
Thanks. That's really helpful. But no, actually, he said that's the revolutionary part which he came up with, is that, hey, there's a way out of this. And the way out of this, like, what is the end of suffering? The answer I was looking for was, it's happiness. Or it's, you know, what is left when there's no suffering? Well, we're doing good. We're okay where there's no more suffering. So therefore, there is more of a pleasant experience of life. And the fourth noble truth is the path. So there is a path that goes there. And the path is also full of wholesome states. It is full of the Brahma Viharas, of loving kindness, of compassion, of joy, mudita, of, we even say anumodana. Anumodana, when we rejoice in somebody else's good deeds, we rejoice in them. And so the Buddha's teaching is so beautiful and rich of all these wholesome states. But sometimes I feel like we put a little too much emphasis on the first and second noble truths, which are only kind of, you know, the first step. But really the main teaching is about developing wholesome mental states, abandoning the hindrances, uplifting the mind, and then with the Brahma Viharas, with the Satipatthanas, and then mental freedom, which is very beautiful and pleasant. I like to remind everybody that the Buddha, the first thing that he did when he first broke through to awakening was to sit cross-legged in the same posture for 7 days under the Bodhi tree, enjoying the bliss of liberation. So it's pretty good. Then he stood up, went under another tree, did the same thing for 7 days. Stood up, went under another tree, did the same thing 3 times. So for 3 weeks, he was having a good time. Just letting everybody know.
So then it's not just nothing.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, so that's the thing when we speak of, and as I was mentioning again on the retreat, you know, emptiness and non-self. There's a way in which we can explain that, and actually there's a way in which that can become a very harmful weapon when it's used with the wrong knowledge and the wrong understanding. Because it can turn everything into a very nihilistic mindset, which is not the Buddha's teaching. The Buddha is very clear about this. This is actually one of the wrong views. Nihilism is one of the wrong views. And so this is not what that is. And that's why I'm very careful around the topic of anatta and non-self. I only approach that in a very specific way and very close to, which pertains to our direct meditation practice, and call it mostly, it's an impersonal process, rather that there's no self, there's not a self, because this, again, it's not false, but it's also, it can be misleading. So, and so it's not plain, it's not nothing, although there is things called nothings. Nothing.
And
there's
nothingness.
There's a lot of nothings in Buddhism, but we have to understand these things in their right context, and to do that, we need maybe a little bit more than just the one talk. So, yeah.
Yeah. Great. Okay. So the next question's related to the one that you just touched on. Is emptiness the same as Nibbana?
Well, again, I really like the Buddha's way of answering these questions. A lot of the time he would say, well, there is a way in which one can understand emptiness and Nibbana as the same thing, and there is a way in which one can understand those two things as not the same thing. So, in some relatively speaking, these two things are quite close together, obviously. So it was emptiness, right? Emptiness, okay, and Nibbana. So the more there is the practice taking momentum, and the more meditators will purify their mind, letting go of unwholesome states, the distractions, the hindrances, unskillful qualities of the mind, soften them up and replace them by wholesome qualities of the mind. These wholesome qualities of the mind, they are inherently selfless. So, and that's another word I use to translate anatta, or non-self, or emptiness. Well, I guess we can play with the words emptiness and non-self as well, but if I go to, I'll try to stay with emptiness because they're very related together. So these two words, anatta and sunyata, are usually understood to be very, very close as well. I would say that Nibbana is at the end of the path when the blowing out of perception and experience happens. One could understand this as being emptiness, as being sunyata. Sunyata, again, means different things. So, like the Buddha would explain the jhanas, for example, as a progressive, entering into emptiness. So it's like emptying the mind, basically, slowly. So Nibbana, I like to understand Nibbana as like a kind of an active principle sometimes. Like you're Nibbana-ing. Nibbana-ing the mind. Nibbana-ing the unwholesome states. And it feels cool, it feels quenched. It's like these analogies are also very vivid, more striking sometimes when we understand where they come from, which is India, North India, and these can be very hot in these countries, and to cool down, to blow out the fire feels like what one would ever want to do. So it's that kind of relief that comes from putting out the fire, whether we're talking about great hidden delusion or the complete cessation of perception and experience, or complete emptiness, if I can say.
Thank you. Someone has mentioned fully Nibbāna'd.
Fully Nibbāna, yes. Very good.
Good. And maybe, noting it says fully Nibbāna'd, can you be somewhat Nibbāna'd? So that leads to the next question. Are there different levels of Nibbana, noting that the Buddha had different definitions or descriptions or usage of Nibbana?
Yes, exactly. So one of the suttas that I like to share on retreat through, usually day 4, day 5 will be a good time to give that teaching on the different levels of meditation. And one of the suttas that I like to use is Nibbāna is happiness. And so someone goes to Sariputta and says, like, this Nibbāna is happiness, Nibbāna is happiness. Like, how is it that Nibbāna is happiness? Especially when there's nothing there. So he, like, well, Sariputta says, well, just that there's nothing. That's the happiness there, because it's peaceful. And then he explains the gradual sequence, the gradual progress of the levels of meditations, which are called the jhanas, as progressively more and more deeper happiness, basically. This is even, like, this is how each of the levels of meditation are experienced as a deeper kind of happiness. And so the Buddha definitely, these words like Nibbāna, emptiness, voidness, or whatever, all of these terms are often used in the jhana sequence to say this is the progressive entering into voidness, for example. This is the progressive entering into Nibbāna, for example. So there are stages of extinguishing, yes, slowly.
Thank you. And related to that, is it possible to have temporary or momentary Nibbāna or glimpses of it?
Yes, so one of the sequences we read every morning on retreat is that definition of Nibbāna, basically, that is coming up as one of the main places where we can find what the word means, and it has many synonyms around it. So etang santang etang panitang yadidang sabba sankara samato sabupadi patinisago tanhakayo virago nirodha nibbana. So this is blissful, this is peaceful, the complete calming of all mental activities. And so there is a way when the meditator goes all the way to the end of letting go of even perception, of even consciousness itself, awareness itself, which is a very profound stage of meditation. The consciousness can be fully released, like I was explaining. If you look at a fire, it's kind of made of all these little bits of how to say, I don't know what like an atom of fire would be called, but I'm missing my scientific partner here.
Oh, we've got him.
Oh, there he is.
Photon.
A photon would be like the light, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering if like what would be called the tiny bit of plasma kind of thing, which is a little bit different. Anyhow,
A grain.
and so there's a way in which all of these tiniest particles can actually be released, and even consciousness. As I was on the retreat, I really liked this video of the birds, the starlings flying around, to explain that consciousness is like a cloud of these birds, these starlings, which is beautiful. They're just moving and dancing and kind of eating bugs, I guess. And but it looks like a cloud, yet there are all individual tiny thousands of little birds, although they look like one unit. And that's the same thing with consciousness. And so when we actually expand the mind, when the mind gets expanded and released, there's not enough of these particles, of these mental activities, these sankharas, the chitta sankharas, to hold the consciousness together anymore. So it loses its compactness completely. And there is a stage where when all of that is released for a moment, or however long one's mind is trained in this state, one can remain there. And even words here are very difficult, because we say one or a person can stay or remain there, but really there's no more, the sense of I-ness is impossible there, because there's no consciousness, there's nothing that can identify. So that's why I like to say nobody enters Nibbana, or nobody enters cessation, or nobody becomes fully awakened, because that's just true. You have to drop the body, or you have to drop the I to get there. So it's completely impossible that one would remain with a sense of self with that experience, actually. And that's why it's so profound, is that we understand that consciousness is completely impersonal. It's just a bunch of activities that are held together by attachment and previous things that we've protracted our consciousness to stick together. But once all of these conditions are broken apart, it has no more substance, there's no more sense of self or I, there's no more awareness to be aware of that, because it's completely released. And
Sounds
so
a bit scary.
that's why it's it's not when we explain it, sometimes people say that like that's kind of scary.
Yeah.
but the thing is that this only comes about in developing the mind in a very uplifted way, to be very skillful with loving kindness, with joy, with really wholesome intentions.
So, sorry, I just had a thought, like, a lot of people, like, who take psychedelics, like, also describe similar things, but then you have cases of people, like, becoming psychotic. Would that be because they were, like, exposed to that stuff way too quickly without, like, any previous understanding?
What psychedelics do is that they can give very strong and powerful experiences, which can be major breakthroughs for people.
Yeah.
Which is, I would say, okay, sure.
But you didn't actually go through the process of getting there.
Yeah, but then it's the taking of a substance, and it doesn't necessarily rely on your own understanding.
Yeah,
actually
of course.
doesn't.
Yeah.
And many people try this route, for example, or without guidance, without any kind of understanding of mental states.
Yeah.
And that's very dangerous.
Yeah.
And what we're talking about here is a completely sober path, and you don't actually need anything to do this. And actually, it's better if you don't.
Yeah.
Because these really big, extreme, strong experiences, they can open the doors for people to kind of change their perspectives initially, but it's not very, often sustainable. And
they end up relying on it to get those insights instead of themselves.
And what happens is that a lot of the time people are not ready to see what they're going to see or experience what they're going to experience.
Yeah.
So it makes them, it puts them out of balance.
Yeah.
And this doesn't happen in what I'm speaking about here.
Okay, I guess that's like what I'm worried about. Is it like a similar thing where like, you can, well, I guess if you start from the beginning, you have like less of that chance because you get insight slowly, whereas like psychedelics just throw you into it like way too quickly. You're not prepared, so I guess it's not going to have the same effect. Yeah.
And again, there's many different kinds of substances, so it's, we can't speak for all of them in one way.
Yeah.
So they're all different. And so the ground understanding is that basically in this particular meditation path, it's all about wisdom and understanding mental states. And whenever we do that, it's a natural progression, and there's no imbalances, because it's a very natural process, and there's no extreme experiences. There are meditation techniques or practices that are more extreme, and these can bring about more extreme experiences, which bring also mental instability sometimes. But this is not what I'm talking about here. This is very soft and gentle and
Okay,
gradual.
good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Bhante, one final question to wrap up. Has Bhante ever met anybody who has realised Nibbana, fully enlightened?
Fully enlightened? Whoa, this is a big question.
A baby.
Well,
Newborn baby.
Baby. So the Buddha said it's not easy to know if somebody is fully awakened, because you need to spend a lot of time with that person. You need to know how they're behaving in all of their ways, to see if there's actually, because somebody can think that they're awakened, but then, that doesn't mean anything. Those are words. There's a lot of, things being said, like, nowadays it's a beautiful thing. We have technology and we have social medias and all this, and it's being used for a beautiful, amazing purposes, like sharing the suttas to millions of people, like Sutta Central is doing, which is amazing. And also there's another flip side of it, where there's disclosure of things that shouldn't be disclosed, and claims of things that cannot be really claimed in that way. And so my advice on this is that before anybody makes a judgment about any kind of level of attainment in this, we call them Arya Puggala, stages of awakening, one needs to spend a long time with a person and see their behavior, not their words, their behavior. Because words, all kinds of words can be said. It's been like this since the dawn of times. And personally, well, maybe I have, but I don't think so. I would say that I do not think I have seen someone that embodies completely these qualities completely, thoroughly, and perfectly, which lines up with everything that the Buddha says, unfortunately. And I'm not saying that there's nobody out there, but I don't think I have met one. The highest likelihood would be maybe, like I was telling Venerable Mettā Ānanda earlier, was because he asked me the same question. yeah, so I don't know who's behind all this.
Mettā Ānanda, are you there?
Yes. I said, I've seen really inspiring forest monks who are not known. And those are the best, that I've found so far, were not to really create any kind of comparison, but, they're very inspiring, coming out of the forest, and they're just, embodying very beautiful qualities and very self-honest, and you don't get to see them very often because they're practicing. And so I would lean towards, these are the places where one would probably encounter such a person. I would give a fair warning about internet.
Yes.
But yeah, that's just my own take on this.
Thank you so much for sharing your presence, your patience in answering our questions. It was such a lovely session, and we really hope you'll come back to Australia in the future, and we would love to host you again.
Thank you so much.
So, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, Venerable, can I ask for maybe dedication of merits
Yes.
to end the session?
Of
Thank you.
course, yes. May suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share these merits that we have thus acquired, for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas and nagas of mighty powers, share these merits of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Venerable.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining in person as well as online. Great crowd today. I've also placed into the chat some announcements as well. So our weekly sessions continue. Every Monday we have meditation online as well as in person here, 6:30 to 7:30. Tuesdays, same time, same place, we have yoga, and that is just in person, not online. And then Wednesday nights talk, same time, same place, 7 to 8:30 p.m. every Wednesday. We've got different teachers and speakers who will be coming. And if you haven't already heard about Metta Connections, this is a way in which we build the bridge between lay people who are practicing in a particular profession and inspiring them to practice right livelihood in whatever they do with other lay practitioners who are doing the same, as well as also linking with other Buddhist organisations and temples who may need that kind of help and support. We also would invite you to join our community for you to get updated information about Mettā Centre events on our website. You can also join our weekly newsletter as well as our WhatsApp group, and you can follow us on Facebook and also Instagram as well. If you would like to make a donation and find out more about the teachings and writings of Bhante Ānanda, that is at heartdhamma.love, and I've popped that into the chat as well. If you'd like to make a donation to Mettā Centre, you can also do that online as well. That's also on our website. So thank you all so much, and thank you again, Bhante. Sadhu. Thank you. Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Bye. See you later.
Bye.
you.